The morning of my wedding, my phone buzzed. My mother's text glowed in the family group chat, "Don't call us again. You're no longer our daughter." Below it, my sister had reacted with a heart emoji. My hands trembled, white dress, hanging behind me, mascara not yet applied to eyes already burning. My crime marrying before my perfect younger sister. They thought disowning me was their ultimate punishment. They had no idea I quietly owned the company where they both worked, and everything was about to change. Have you ever been erased by the people who should love you most? The stories on this channel are created solely for entertainment, educational, and storytelling purposes. While some stories are inspired by real situations submitted by viewers via email, most details have been fictionalized, combined, or altered. My name is Christina Hartwell. I am 37 years old, a vice president at Trident Capital Partners, one of the most respected private equity firms in the Midwest. I built my career from nothing. No family connections, no inheritance, no safety net. Everything I have, I earned with my own hands. For 35 years, I believed my parents simply loved my younger sister Emily more than me. I was wrong. The truth had nothing to do with love. It had everything to do with money my grandmother meant for me, money my mother spent a decade trying to steal. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the girl who learned early that she was invisible. Growing up, I was the daughter who didn't need attention. Emily was the daughter who deserved everything. My parents never said these words out loud, but they lived them every single day. When I turned 16, my mother promised me a birthday party. I was so excited I had invited 12 friends from school. The morning of the party, Emily came home with news she had made the cheerleading squad. My mother's eyes lit up in a way I had never seen when she looked at me. "We need to celebrate Emily's achievement," she announced. "Christina, your birthday can wait until next weekend." Next weekend never came. My friends showed up to an empty house while my family was at a restaurant toasting Emily's pom-poms. I sat alone on the porch and told them the party was canceled. I never forgot the pity in their eyes. At 24, I became the first person in my family to graduate from college. It took me 6 years instead of 4 because my parents refused to complete the FAFSA form or provide their tax information for my financial aid. I had to work full-time at a grocery store for 2 years, waiting until I turned 24 and qualified as an independent student. On graduation day, my parents arrived 2 hours late. They had been helping Emily try on prom dresses. "It's over already," my mother asked, looking around the empty auditorium. "Why didn't you tell us it would be so short?" I stood there in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, and realized they had not even noticed I was summa cum laude. At 32, I called home to share the biggest news of my career. I had been promoted to vice president at Trident Capital Partners. My mother interrupted me after 30 seconds. "That's nice, honey. Listen, Emily just got engaged. Daniel proposed last night. We need to start planning the wedding." Isn't this exciting? I hung up and never called to share good news again. The only person who ever truly saw me was my grandmother Margaret. She was my mother's mother, but nothing like her daughter. Grandma Margaret treated Emily and me exactly the same. She would hold my face in her hands and say, "You have fire in you, sweetheart. Don't ever let anyone put it out." When she passed away from a stroke, I was 27. I lost the only family member who made me feel real. A week after her funeral, I asked my mother about something Grandma had mentioned. "Mom, Grandma once told me she was leaving something for me and Emily." "What was it?" My mother's answer was smooth, almost rehearsed. "Just some jewelry and photo albums, sentimental things. I'm keeping them safe until you girls are more settled." I believed her. I was grieving. I never imagined my own mother would lie about something so significant. Years later, I would learn the truth. But first, I had to discover something that changed everything. During an acquisition deal at my firm, I found my parents' names on an employee roster. They worked at a company I was about to own. For 4 years, I watched them from a distance, through quarterly reports and board minutes. I told myself I was just observing. But deep down, I was waiting for them to prove me wrong about who they really were. Instead, they would prove something far worse. 2 years before, I would stand in that company meeting and reveal who I really was. My parents delivered the cruelest blow of my entire life. It happened on what should have been the happiest day I had ever known, my wedding day. I met Mark Hartwell at a business conference 3 years earlier. He was a corporate attorney, sharp and kind with a laugh that made me feel safe. He was the first person besides my grandmother who made me feel truly seen. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. I did not need my parents' approval. I had stopped seeking it years ago. But some small, stubborn part of me still hoped they would show up. Still hoped that watching their daughter get married might finally make them proud. I sent them an invitation. I called to confirm. My mother's response was cool, but not hostile. She said they would try to attend. I told myself that was enough. The morning of the wedding, I sat in a small room at the venue. While a makeup artist worked on my face, my white dress hung on the door behind me, catching the morning light. I felt nervous, but happy. Mark's family had been so welcoming, so warm. His parents had hugged me the night before and told me they were gaining a daughter. I had almost cried. Then my phone buzzed. The message was from my mother, sent to the family group chat, so Emily could see it too. I read the words 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. "We will not be attending your wedding. You have humiliated this family by marrying before your sister. Emily has been engaged for 4 years, and you could not even give her the respect of waiting. You have always been selfish, always putting yourself first. Do not contact us until you understand what you have done to this family." Below the message, Emily had reacted with a heart emoji. The makeup artist asked if I was okay. I could not answer. I just stared at the screen, reading those words over and over. The intensity of my mother's fury made no sense. Marrying before a sibling was not a crime. It was not even unusual. Plenty of younger siblings got engaged first. Why was this betrayal worthy of disowning me? Something about the message felt desperate, almost panicked, but I could not understand why. I put my phone away and finished getting ready. I would not let them ruin this day. I had spent 35 years letting them make me feel small. Not today. The ceremony was beautiful. The venue was a garden with white chairs and an arch covered in flowers. Mark stood at the altar looking at me like I was the only person in the world. But as I walked down the aisle, I could not help noticing the difference between our two sides. Mark's side overflowed with people. His parents, his brother and sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends from law school. In the front row sat his 86-year-old grandmother, Emma, silver-haired and elegant, watching everything with sharp, knowing eyes. My side had 7 people. 2 college friends who had driven 4 hours to be there. 2 colleagues from work. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who had brought me soup when I was sick and remembered my birthday when my own parents forgot. A couple I had met through a charity board. That was it. 7 people to represent 35 years of my life. The empty chairs on my side screamed louder than any words could. After the ceremony, while guests mingled and music played, Mark's grandmother Emma made her way toward me. She moved slowly with her walker, her hearing aids visible behind her ears, but there was nothing frail about her gaze. She had been watching me all day, and now she took my hand in both of hers. "I know that look," she said quietly. "I wore it on my own wedding day 62 years ago. My mother-in-law refused to attend because she thought I was not good enough for her son. I spent years trying to earn her approval, years I will never get back." She squeezed my fingers with surprising strength. "Let me tell you something. It took me decades to learn. The people who choose not to show up for you have removed themselves from your future. That is not your loss, sweetheart. That is theirs. You remember that." I broke down in her arms. It was the first and only time I cried that day. This woman I had just met showed me more love in 2 minutes than my own mother had shown me in 35 years. 1 week after the wedding, Emily called. For one foolish moment, I thought she might be calling to apologize. Maybe she had reconsidered. Maybe some part of her felt guilty. I was wrong. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" Emily's voice was sharp with anger. "Mom and Dad are furious. They are talking about writing you out of everything. I have had to postpone my wedding again because you ruined the family mood." I caught that word. Again. Emily had been engaged to Daniel for 4 years. Her wedding had been postponed at least 3 times that I knew of. "Why do you keep postponing?" I asked quietly. "Because we are waiting for—" She stopped herself suddenly. "Because planning takes time. And now Daniel is upset because Mom and Dad promised us a substantial wedding gift, and everything is complicated because of you." I frowned. Our parents had always lived modestly. A middle-class house in a middle-class neighborhood, used cars, ordinary vacations. Where would they get money for a substantial gift "What gift?" I asked. "Never mind. The point is, you ruined everything. As usual, you only think about yourself." She hung up before I could respond. But her slip about the substantial gift stayed with me. It lodged in my mind like a splinter I could not remove. 3 weeks after the wedding, a package arrived from my parents. Inside was the $500 check I had given Emily 4 years ago as an engagement gift. It had never been cashed. They had saved it just to return it to me. Attached was a handwritten note from my mother. "This money should go toward a proper wedding. Emily's wedding, which she deserves. You are not part of this family until you apologize for your selfishness and learn your place. Do not contact us again." I held the check and the note for a long time. I did not cry. I did not scream or throw things. I just sat in silence, turning the pieces over in my mind. The canceled birthday, the missed graduation, the interrupted phone call, the desperate fury over my wedding, the mysterious substantial gift, Emily's perpetual postponement, and underneath it all, my grandmother Margaret's voice from 10 years ago, "I am leaving something for you and Emily." My mother had told me it was just jewelry and photo albums. Sentimental things. But my mother had also told me I was selfish for getting married. My mother had told me a lot of things. That night, I opened my laptop and searched for Margaret Walsh's obituary. Then I searched the county probate records. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the results. What I found made my blood run cold. There was an estate filing I had never seen, a trust fund I had never been told about, and listed clearly as beneficiaries were two names, Emily Coleman and Christina Coleman. I called Mark, my voice barely steady. "I need to talk to that estate attorney, Sarah Whitmore. I need to see her tomorrow." For 35 years, I believed my mother simply loved Emily more. That night, sitting in the glow of my laptop screen, I began to understand the truth. It was never about love. It was about money. My money. And my mother had been stealing it for 7 years. 2 years passed between that night and the day I finally revealed myself. 2 years of investigation, patience, and careful planning. Sarah Whitmore, the estate attorney Mark connected me with, became my partner in uncovering the truth. What we found was worse than I had imagined. My grandmother Margaret had left behind a trust fund worth $200,000 split equally between Emily and me. The terms were clear. Each granddaughter would receive her share at age 30 or upon marriage, whichever came first. My mother Diane had been appointed as the trustee legally responsible for managing the fund and notifying both beneficiaries when they qualified. Emily had received her $100,000 5 years ago, the moment she turned 30. She had known about the trust all along. But me, I had turned 37 years ago. I had gotten married 2 years ago. I qualified under both conditions. And yet no one had ever told me. No one had ever given me a single dollar. My mother had simply pretended the money did not exist. Sarah and I knew the outline of the conspiracy, but we lacked the smoking gun. We could not prove whether my mother's failure to notify me was intentional fraud or innocent negligence. To get that proof, we needed legal subpoenas for bank records, trust documents, and correspondence. But filing those subpoenas would tip off my mother. She would have time to destroy evidence, create cover stories, coach Emily on what to say. We needed to be strategic, so I waited. I had leverage I had not yet used. I was still the anonymous board representative at Morrison Industries, the company where my parents worked. The right moment would come. I just had to be patient. That moment arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. Morrison Industries announced a company-wide meeting to introduce the board representative from Trident Capital Partners who had overseen the company's remarkable turnaround. For 4 years, this person had attended meetings only through a proxy. No one at Morrison knew who they really were. Now, with the company profitable and stable, the mysterious investor would finally appear in person. The meeting was scheduled for 10 in the morning in the main conference room. Every employee was required to attend. That included Richard Coleman, warehouse operations manager, Diane Coleman, staff accountant, and Emily Coleman, marketing coordinator. I arrived at the building early and waited in a small office near the conference room. Through the window, I watched employees file in, taking seats in rows of folding chairs. I saw my father enter, looking tired and gray. I saw my mother, her posture rigid, her face set in that expression of permanent superiority I knew so well. I saw Emily clutching a coffee cup, glancing around nervously. None of them had any idea what was about to happen. At exactly 10 o'clock, the CEO of Morrison Industries stepped to the podium. He thanked everyone for coming. He talked about the company's growth over the past 4 years, the new contracts, the improved efficiency, the stable future. Then he smiled and gestured toward the side door. And now, he said, I would like to introduce the person who made all of this possible. Please welcome Christina Hartwell, Vice President at Trident Capital Partners, and our board representative for the past 4 years. I walked into the room wearing a charcoal blazer and simple pearl earrings. The pearls had belonged to my grandmother Margaret. They were the only item my mother had actually given me from the estate, probably because they were too distinctive to sell without raising questions. The room applauded politely. Most employees had never heard my name before, but 3 people in that room knew exactly who I was. My father's jaw dropped. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. My mother's face drained of all color. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. And Emily went pale, but her expression was different from our parents. She did not look shocked. She looked terrified. The expression of someone whose secrets are about to be exposed. I gave a brief professional speech about Morrison's future. I talked about upcoming investments, new market opportunities, my confidence in the leadership team. I did not mention anything personal. I did not even look at my family. I acted as if they were strangers, just 3 more employees in a room of 200. But everyone in that room could feel something had shifted. The air itself felt different. After the meeting, I spotted Emily hurrying toward the parking lot. She was practically running her head down, her keys already in her hand. Emily, wait! She froze. For a moment, I thought she might keep walking, pretend she had not heard me. But she stopped and turned around slowly. Her face was a mask of forced composure. Christina, congratulations on all this. She gestured vaguely at the building. I had no idea. I think you did have some idea, I said calmly. When exactly did you figure it out? Her composure cracked immediately. About 8 months ago, I saw your name in a board document and looked you up on LinkedIn. I was not sure what to do. So you did nothing. What was I supposed to do? Call you after everything that happened? I studied my sister carefully. I had not seen her in person since before my wedding. She looked older, more tired. There were lines around her eyes that had not been there before. But what struck me most was the fear. It radiated off her like heat from a fire. You look scared, Emily, not surprised. Scared? Why is that? Her eyes darted away from mine. I do not know what you mean. I think you do. I think you know exactly why Mom and Dad were so desperate to keep me away from this family. And I think it has something to do with Grandmother Margaret's estate. Emily's face confirmed everything. She looked like a trapped animal searching for an escape route and finding none. I cannot talk about this. Her voice was barely a whisper. I have to go. She practically ran to her car. I did not follow. I did not need to. Her reaction had told me everything I needed to know. Emily was not just a passive beneficiary of our mother's scheme. She was complicit. She had known about the trust fund. She had known I was being cheated. And she had said nothing. The next day, I sent a formal memo to Morrison's HR and legal departments. Given my family connection to 3 employees, I wrote all personnel decisions involving Richard Diane or Emily Coleman would be handled by an independent review committee. I would recuse myself entirely from any matters concerning them. I wanted no conflict of interest. I wanted no accusations of personal revenge. Whatever happened to my family at Morrison Industries would happen through proper corporate channels, through performance reviews and documented evaluations and official policies. Not through me, but privately I made another call to Sarah Whitmore. I need those subpoenas filed today, I told her. Emily knows I am onto them. If we do not move fast, evidence is going to start disappearing. Bank statements, trust documents, everything. We need to lock it down now. Sarah understood. By the end of the week, the legal process was in motion. The company reveal was just the first card I had played. My family thought that was my whole hand. They thought the worst was over, that the humiliation of that meeting was the extent of my power over them. They had no idea I was about to expose a 7-year fraud, and they had no idea that my own mother had signed the evidence herself. 6 months after the company meeting, Sarah Whitmore called me with the words I had been waiting years to hear. Christina, we have everything, every single piece of evidence we need. Your mother is finished. I drove to Sarah's office that afternoon. She spread 4 documents across her desk, each one a nail in the coffin of my mother's lies. The first document was the trust itself. My grandmother Margaret's wishes were written in plain language. Each granddaughter would receive $100,000 at age 30 or upon marriage, whichever came first. Emily had received her share 5 years ago, the day she turned 30. I had turned 37 years ago. I had been married for 2 years. I qualified twice over. And I had never received a single penny. The second document made my hands shake. It was a sworn affidavit signed by my mother when grandmother's estate was settled. The words were typed clearly. I have made reasonable efforts to notify all beneficiaries of the trust and their entitlements. She had signed it under penalty of perjury. She had dated it 7 years ago. Every word of it was a lie. The third document explained how she had done it. When the trust administrator asked for addresses for both beneficiaries, my mother had written her own home address for both Emily and me. Next to my name, she had added a note. Christina moves frequently. Use this permanent address for all correspondence. Every letter meant for me had been sent to her house. She had received them. She had hidden them. She had never forwarded a single one. But the fourth document was the one that destroyed any possible defense. Sarah had subpoenaed emails between my mother and Emily from 3 years ago. I read them with a strange, cold calm. Emily had written, "What happens when Christina finds out about the trust?" My mother replied, "She will not. She has not talked to us in years, and she does not know anything about estate law. By the time the 15-year clause kicks in, you will get her share too. Just be patient." Emily wrote back, "What if she gets married?" My mother's response, "Christina, please, she has never brought home anyone. Just focus on your wedding with Daniel. That money will be your wedding gift." There it was. Written proof that my mother and sister had conspired to steal my inheritance. Written proof that they had been planning this for years. Written proof that the substantial wedding gift Emily kept mentioning was my money stolen from me before I even knew it existed. I took copies of everything. Then I called Mark. "We are going to my parents' house tonight." We arrived at 7 in the evening, Sarah Whitmore beside us as a witness. My mother answered the door with a look of confusion that quickly turned to fear when she saw our face. My father stood behind her, already pale. I walked past them into the kitchen without being invited. I laid the documents on the table one by one. The trust, the affidavit, the address records, the emails. "You have 10 seconds to explain this." My mother's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, fear, and then incredibly defiance. "You did not need that money. You were always so independent. I did not need it." My voice was ice. "I worked at a grocery store for 2 years because you refused to fill out my FAFSA. I took night classes because I could not afford to stop working. I slept in my car for 3 weeks when I could not make rent. And the whole time, there was $100,000 with my name on it that you hid from me. You turned out fine. Look at you now." "I turned out fine despite you, not because of you." I turned to my father. He had not moved from the doorway. He looked smaller than I remembered, shrunken somehow. "And you, did you know?" He could not meet my eyes. His voice was barely a whisper. "I told myself you did not need it. You were always so strong." Emily needed help. Emily received $100,000 5 years ago. I cut him off. She has been spending it while I struggled. That was not help. That was theft. My father broke down then. The full truth spilled out of him like water from a cracked dam. He had known about the scheme since the beginning. He had convinced himself it was justified because I was doing fine and Emily needed support. He was terrified of opposing my mother. She had threatened to leave him if he interfered. He had grown up in poverty, he said. The thought of losing his marriage, his home, his stability at 60 years old was unbearable. "I am not a bad person," he pleaded, tears running down his face. "I just did not want to lose everything." I looked at him with something close to pity. "Dad, you did not lose everything. You threw it away. You chose Mom's scheme over your own daughter. That was not weakness. That was a choice." The consequences came swiftly after that. The district attorney's office reviewed the evidence. They offered my mother a plea deal, pled guilty to filing false documents, received 18 months probation, 150 hours of community service, and a $5,000 fine. The alternative was a trial with potential felony charges for perjury. My mother took the plea. She now has a criminal record. The probate court removed her as trustee and appointed an independent administrator. I received my full $100,000 plus 7 years of accrued interest. The total came to approximately $165,000. My mother's CPA license was suspended pending review by the state board. Morrison Industries terminated her employment, citing the criminal conviction and breach of trust. She had been handling company money while committing fraud elsewhere. They could not keep her. My father fared only slightly better. The independent review committee evaluated his performance and found he was not incompetent, but he had struggled to adapt to the new inventory management systems the company had implemented. They offered him a choice: early retirement with a standard severance package or retraining for a reduced role. At 64, he did not have the energy to start over. He chose retirement. Emily's performance reviews showed consistent underperformance since her promotion 2 years earlier. She had failed to meet her goals for 3 consecutive quarters. She had been placed on a 60-day improvement plan, which she failed. The committee recommended termination or demotion to administrative assistant. Emily chose demotion, too proud to have the word fired on her record. She now works in the filing room at Morrison Industries. When the scandal broke, Daniel did not leave immediately. He stayed for 3 months watching the Coleman family implode, calculating his options. But as it became clear that the substantial wedding gift was never coming, that Emily had been waiting for stolen money, he grew distant. Then cold, then cruel. "You told me your family could help us get started," he said during their final argument. "You promised there would be money when we got married. Your mother is a convicted fraudster, your father is unemployed, and you just got demoted. What exactly am I staying for?" He moved out that weekend. The engagement simply evaporated after 4 years. I felt no satisfaction watching Emily's heartbreak, only recognition. This was how I had felt my entire life, valued for what I could provide, discarded when I had nothing left to offer. 3 months after the legal proceedings concluded, my parents appeared at my door. My mother held a small velvet box containing grandmother's antique emerald bracelet, the one they had always promised to Emily. "We want you to have this," she said. "We know we were wrong. We are asking for a chance to make things right." I looked at the bracelet. It was beautiful and meaningless. "You are not sorry for what you did," I said quietly. "You are sorry you got caught. There is a difference." I stepped back from the door. "Keep the bracelet. Give it to Emily. I do not want anything from you except distance." Mark stood behind me, his hand on my shoulder. I closed the door. They spent 20 years planning to steal my inheritance and 37 years making me feel worthless. They lost their jobs, their reputations, and their retirement. But the real punishment was simpler than that. They lost me. And they finally realized I was the one thing they could not afford to lose. 2 years have passed since I closed that door on my parents. I am 39 years old now, and my life looks nothing like it did when I was the invisible daughter begging for scraps of attention. Everything has changed. Everything except the truth of who my family really was. Mark and I have a daughter. She is 14 months old, with her father's dark hair and my grandmother's eyes. We named her Margaret Emma. Margaret, for the grandmother who tried to protect me, who left me an inheritance my mother spent a decade trying to steal. Emma, for the grandmother who showed me what chosen family looks like, who held me on my wedding day, and told me the people who refuse to show up have removed themselves from your future. My daughter will grow up knowing both of those women. She will know their stories and their love. She will understand why her middle name matters. I used $50,000 of my recovered inheritance to establish the Margaret Walsh Scholarship Fund. It provides financial aid to first-generation college students whose families will not complete their FAFSA forms, students whose parents, for whatever reason, refuse to help them access education. Last year, the fund helped 12 young people attend college. This year, it will help 20. The mission statement on the scholarship website says it simply, "My grandmother wanted to give me a start in life. My mother tried to take that away. Now I am making sure other young people get the start my grandmother intended, even if their own families stand in the way." It feels right. It feels like something Grandma Margaret would have wanted. Morrison Industries continues to thrive. Last year, I supported a strategic sale to a larger distribution company. But I negotiated one condition before agreeing: employment protection for 90% of the workforce for 3 years. The acquiring company wanted to cut costs immediately. I told them the deal was off unless they protected the workers who had made the turnaround possible. They agreed. Some things matter more than maximum profit. As for my family, justice found each of them in different ways. My mother works part-time at a tax preparation chain now, but only during filing season. It is the only accounting work she could find with a criminal record and a suspended CPA license. The community knows what she did. Probate court records are public, and in a small town, gossip travels fast. The women's club she once led asked her to resign. The church committee she chaired found a replacement. She has become invisible in the community she once dominated. I wonder sometimes if she understands the irony. She spent my whole life making me invisible. Now she knows exactly how it feels. My father lives on his pension, in the same house which has grown too quiet. He spends his days watching television and avoiding my mother's bitterness. I heard from a distant relative that he writes letters to me, sometimes letters he never sends. He has finally stopped telling himself that what he did was justified. But that clarity came too late to matter. Emily still works in Morrison's filing room. She considered quitting, but jobs are scarce for someone with her record of underperformance. She shows up every day to a company I used to control, sorting papers and answering phones, a daily reminder of how far she has fallen. Daniel married another woman 11 months after leaving Emily, someone from a wealthy family in another state. Emily saw the wedding photos on social media. I imagine she finally understood what I had always known: some people only stay as long as you are useful. 18 months after everything ended, my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. The caller ID showed Emily's name. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Christina, it is Emily. Please do not hang up." I did not hang up. I did not say anything either. I just waited. "I am not calling to ask for anything," she said quickly. "Not money, not a job, not forgiveness. I just need to say something, and then you never have to hear from me again." I heard her take a shaky breath. I knew about the trust fund. I knew Mom was keeping your share. I knew you qualified years ago, and I did not say anything because I wanted the money more than I wanted to be your sister." Silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing unsteady and raw. "When Daniel left me," she continued, "he said something I cannot stop thinking about. He said he stayed because of what I could give him, money, status, connections. When those things disappeared, so did he. And I realized that is exactly how I treated you. I valued you based on what you could give me, which was nothing. So I treated you like nothing." Her voice cracked. "I am not asking you to forgive me. I do not deserve that. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I did, what we all did. And I am sorry. Not because I got caught, because I was wrong." I was quiet for a long moment. I thought about all the years of being ignored, dismissed, erased. I thought about the canceled birthday and the missed graduation and the interrupted phone call. I thought about sleeping in my car while my sister spent my inheritance. Then I said, "Thank you for telling me that. I mean it. And I hope you find something in your life that is not about what other people can give you." I did not say I forgive you. I did not say let us start over. Some wounds do not heal with a single phone call. But I did not hang up with anger either. Just completion. I maintain minimal contact with my parents now. A birthday card, a holiday text, nothing more. They have not met Margaret Emma. They were not invited to her baptism. Grandma Emma Hartwell was the guest of honor instead. When my mother sent a baby gift after Margaret Emma was born, I returned it with a note. My daughter will know about her great-grandmother Margaret and what she tried to give me. She will also know the truth about what you tried to take. I will not pretend we are a happy family for her sake. I will not teach her that people who hurt you are entitled to access just because they are related. She deserves honesty, not performance. Some people would call that harsh. I call it clarity. On my desk sit 2 framed photographs. The first is from my wedding day. My side of the aisle is nearly empty. Mark holds my hand at the altar. The visible absence of my family is a permanent record of their choice. The second photograph is from Margaret Emma's first birthday. Mark is blowing out a candle. Grandma Emma holds the baby with arthritic hands. 3 former colleagues who became close friends stand nearby. Mrs. Patterson from next door is there too, the elderly neighbor who showed me more kindness than my own parents ever did. I look between those 2 photos sometimes, and I understand something my younger self never could. The empty chairs were not a punishment. They were a gift. They cleared space for people who actually wanted to be there. My grandmother Margaret left me $100,000 and a lesson. The money was almost stolen. The lesson could not be some people will try to take what is yours, not because they need it, but because they do not believe you deserve it. My parents thought their absence at my wedding would devastate me. They thought I would come crawling back apologizing for the crime of living my own life. They were wrong. Their absence freed me. It freed me to build a family where love has no conditions, where worth is not measured by usefulness, where the chairs are filled with people who actually want to sit in them. They spent 7 years trying to steal my inheritance. They spent 37 years trying to convince me I did not deserve anything. But they forgot the most important thing my grandmother Margaret ever gave me: the fire to survive without them. In the end, that fire was worth more than any money. And the family I chose is worth more than the family that chose to leave. Thank you for staying with me through Christina's story. Before you go, I want to share something important that this story teaches us. Family is not just about blood. It is about who shows up for you, who respects you, and who loves you without conditions. If someone in your life makes you feel invisible, makes you feel like you do not deserve good things, that says everything about them and nothing about you. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to build a new family with people who actually value you. Christina spent 37 years waiting for her parents to see her worth. The moment she stopped waiting was the moment she found peace. Remember this: your worth is not determined by the people who fail to recognize it. Some people will try to take what is yours not because they need it, but because they do not believe you deserve it. Prove them wrong by living well. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who hurt you? How did you find the strength to choose yourself? Share your story with our community. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.